Okay, hello. Greetings from Tokyo. This is Daisuke, and we will begin momentarily with the live stream format for the discussion of the film, the James Bond film from 2015. The film is called Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes and starring Daniel Craig. Let's just give me one moment. I hope everyone is well today. Great. Damien, hello. Trying not to be nosy or anything, but have you considered using a bean bag? Thank you, to make yourself more comfortable for live streams. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. You're very considerate about that. Yes. So, uh, that's a really good idea. I have a little, I have a sort of a floor mat type of cushion, a seat cushion that I'm sitting on at the moment. But I've been thinking about maybe uh, maybe setting up a chair or something like that. But at the same time, I like I like I guess I feel more. How should I put it? It feels, if I'm sitting on the floor for some reason, I'm not sure, I feel like I get more into the mood, or into the spirit of talking about films on the YouTube channel for some reason. I'm not sure, but thank you very much for that. That's very kind. Yeah, I think the beanbag situation, that might be, maybe, or a pillow or something. I don't know. I think even with the beanbag, I think it would be just sitting down for an extended period of time. That's probably the issue. Maybe I have to stand. Maybe I should stand up and do these things one of these days. But thank you very much, Damien. Maybe I'll do some standing and talk about it. I hope you're well, my dear friend. Thank you so much. Damn fool is here. When the Blu-ray case is open, do you hear? Yes, we're gonna hear that line a lot today. Yes, I am the author of all your pain. Oh, yes, yes. Um, and Damful, thank you very much. That was a great live stream, by the way, yesterday. I was pleasantly enjoying listening to the discussion. I joined in around the time just before you started your discussion of the Jackie Chan movies, so that was really great. I was drinking coffee at the time because it was around, I think it was 10 a.m. or so around my time. So I was leisurely drinking my coffee and listening to your live stream. So it was really wonderful. Thank you. Damn Fool Idealistic Crusaders live streams, by the way, cannot be missed. Got to check them out. And his Bond commentaries, too. Please check those out. Slice of Scott, hello. Mike, hello. Cartwheel Videos here, hello. Zyrother here, the one, the only Zyrother. I wouldn't be able to do this live chat without you guys. Zyrother, the person who came up with the idea of of using the poll format. So thank you so much. It was an excellent idea. So if you implement it every time. And so Damien's talking about a particular scene. Yes, yes. So we'll talk about that scene with yeah. We'll talk about that very much. Well, not very much. We'll talk about that in other scenes. Excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me. We'll talk about that in other scenes during the course of this live stream, I hope. Gabrielle is here, And let's see, Cooper Glover is here. Kevin is here. Hello. Kevin says it's the even number films that are perplexing in the Craig lineup. Interesting. So that means so there are four at the moment. So Casino Royale, and then the second being Quantum of Solace. So that's an even number. The third being Skyfall, and the fourth being Spectre. So that's an even number as well. So okay, interesting. Interesting. Matthew's here. Gizmortar is here. Hello. Erwin is here. Yes. Seth is here. Hello, Seth. Yes. Gizmortar says, was going to make myself a vodka martini to enjoy whilst watching this live stream, but had to settle for digestive enzyme shake. uh, what is cut out the middleman? Yes. We'll talk about that as well. Yes, and those those drinks. What did those drinks do? Yeah, I'm talking about the scene on the train. We'll get into that as well. Like, poor drinks. Yeah. Anyway, well, let's start in about a minute or so, and we can just hold tight, and we will begin momentarily. Again, once again, today's discussion will be about the film Spectre. Very interesting film. Yes. Oh, Jared is here. Hello. And Jay Moore is here. Nathan Terry's here. Chiggers is here. That's great. It's wonderful to see you. And for those of you who are in the United States, I know it's a holiday weekend, and so please, I hope you are enjoying your holiday weekend, and I hope all is well with you. And of course, to everyone in the world, I hope you are all doing well today, wherever you are in the world. Yes. Okay, so let us begin, if that's okay, about this discussion. So, shall we begin? Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and today we are in a live stream discussion where we will talk about the film here from 2015. This is the work which is called Spectre, starring Daniel Craig, and it's directed by Sam Mendes, and this is in many ways seen as a type of follow-up. It could be seen in some ways too as a sequel, because there are some specific through lines with the previous film Skyfall, and indeed with past Bond films as well, in particular within the Daniel Craig era, and we'll talk about that during the course of this live stream, hopefully. So before we begin, I should just present some preliminary items as per usual, which is, well, first, I want to say that I am not approaching this in any fashion as any kind of expert or historian with regard to this particular film. So I'm looking at this purely as a fan of the series and someone who has seen this film just a number of times prior to this. So, and also as part of the overall James Bond film franchise, the Eon series. And so I'm looking at this as a fan, and so I don't claim to know every single detail about this film or the production, etc. So I can't answer every question, but I will certainly do my best with those that I feel like I might be able to provide a comment here and there. With that in mind, of course, please feel free to use the live chat, which is now open. And please feel free to use that to speak with others, to meet other people here, to talk about James Bond films, to talk about Spectre, and hopefully to have a fun discussion between and among you all with regard to Spectre and with regard to cinema. So please feel free to do that. And speaking of that too, the live chat, as I say, is open for anyone who wants to comment. I am always very, very grateful for everyone who participates in the live live stream discussions and in the live chat, you are always so respectful. You're respectful to me so much, and I'm very grateful for that. And you are so respectful to other people. And where there is agreement, where there is disagreement, you are still very you are willing to listen to others, and you are willing to give your takes. And I'm always very impressed. I'm so honored that you take care of each other, and you look out for one another. And even as I say, even when there's disagreement, you are always showing such class and such decorum, and also such respect for others. So I want to thank you as always up to now for that. And you look out for me in this channel tremendously. And as I say, I wouldn't be able to do this channel without you and your support. So I want to thank you very much for that. And I thank you in advance for continuing that spirit today in the live chat, very much so. And speaking of the live chat once again, too, I will, of course, do my very best to address every person in the live chat and also every comment. However, please note that if I miss your name by accident, again, it is by accident, it is not by design, please believe me. But if I do that, I really want to apologize. It's no ill will intended on my part whatsoever. Please, again, believe me on that. It's just, I can't just it's hard for me to keep up with the chat during the course of this, but I will do my best. And if you have any questions or comments for me that are non-Spectre related, then I might just skip over it for now, and I apologize for that. But if you still want to ask me that question or give me that comment, please feel free to do so in a video or another video comment section, and I'm always very happy to try to address it to the best of my ability. And so, because I do read them, and I do try to respond as much. I don't respond every day. There is a it's, but I do look at the comments, and I try to respond as often as I can. So I might be a little bit late, and for that I apologize. But please rest assured that I always think about responding to everything. And so, if you do have any questions and comments for me that are non-Spectre related, please feel free to do so in a video comment. And as I say, I will do my best to respond. Sometimes I won't be able to respond in a satisfactory way, but you know, I am only human. But I will, of course, do my very best. So, and I think also, yes, one more thing too is we will be speaking about spoiler details of this film, plot details. I think that's important because there are specific matters that I think I really want to try to address and hear your thoughts on. So if you haven't seen the film Spectre yet, uh, then please, I encourage you actually to turn off this live stream because we will be spoiling it. And so after you have seen the film, you can always come back, and hopefully this will be uploaded as a video, or you can still catch the live stream, or whatever the case may be. Please feel free to come back and we can discuss this film, Spectre. Okay, so let us begin with the conversation. So, excuse me. Now, one more time, let's check the live chat. I'm so sorry. I'm maybe it's just one of those mornings. I think I have a little bit of a. It's not a cold or anything like that, but just a little bit, maybe a little bit stuffed up here. So I might be going to the sip of water a little bit more frequently than usual. So I apologize in advance. Let's see. So Seth Walsh, yes, the whole movie I kept thinking how Bond was such an excellent marksman. Almost every time he pulls the trigger, he hits his target. When he shoots the helicopter at the end with the pistol was too cool. Yes, and also when he's in the lair in the middle of the desert, and they escape after the watch, Tempest Fugit, right? The watch, how time flies, boom, and then suddenly everything explodes, and then, or not explodes yet. Before the huge explosion, he and Madeline escape, and they go out and and then he subdues one of the guards, and then he takes the gun. He just walks. He does that thing where he does a lot of Daniel Craig does a lot of, he doesn't like, I guess he he doesn't need to hide, to get cover and shoot. He's just walking rather casually, and boom, boom, boom. So it has that feel of a, what do you call, like a first person video game, one of those action style video games. And so which I think is a very interesting concept. It's something that we saw a little bit from Pierce Brosnan, and he does the thing where Pierce Brosnan has a way about his he tends to lean back, and he does the thing with the one arm and the machine gun, for instance, in Tomorrow Never Dies. Here at Spectre, it's a similar thing. Although Daniel Craig tends to hunch a little bit more like this, and to sort of tense up the muscles and then do that. But he likes to maybe walk rather than run. So it's a very interesting way of showing action. I think it's very effective, actually. And then there's the bit too with the explosion, and I didn't realize this until I saw some of the making of documentary stuff and the behind the scenes. But that was an actual explosion, a huge explosion that occurs in that compound. It was for real. So I didn't realize that I was thinking this can't be real, because it's just so spectacular and so meticulously put together in terms of one shot and everything. But it was so very, very impressive, very impressive. So, Seth, my dear friend, thank you very much. And let's see, Cooper Glover, yes, hello, Cooper Glover. I like how they didn't rely on CGI that much or too much. Yes. Irwin says, in terms of continuity, they kind of forgot Quantum of Solace never happened. Oops. There we go. Let's see. Nathan Terry, yes. It's good to see you. Kevin says, settled with a whiskey and cigar for today's live stream. Thank you so much, my dear friend. Jay Moore says, yeah, while I did enjoy Spectre for what it was worth, you can definitely tell they scrambled to change the story continuity once they got the rights to the Spectre name as well as Blofeld. Yes. Oh, thank you so much. And Seth says, call me biased for rooting for the underdog, but I think this is either my second or third favorite Craig Bond in his films. Many times did I think to myself, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James Bond, too cool. Very interesting. Very interesting. So I think let us, that's a really great place to start. That and Jay Moore's comment and others is, thank you so much for this. And Matthew says, this was a very interesting rewatch, I must say. Thank you. And so let us, Spectre. This is, as of now, the most recent of the Eon Productions James Bond film series films. And as of now, it's, of course, the one that stars Daniel Craig, and we still have one more film to go in the future. So hopefully that will be released very, very soon, and we can talk about that on a separate occasion once we've all had a chance to see it. But for now, we have Spectre. This film, Spectre. It's therefore the film that I have seen the least in terms of the James Bond film series, for obvious reasons, right? Because it's the most recent, and it's still, I mean, it is 2015, so maybe it's not so recent in those terms, but still, from my point of view, it is rather recent. And for that matter, it is one that how should I put it? I'm still in the midst of processing, if that makes sense, because like other films, not just James Bond films, but like with other films, when I first see a film, I have a certain reaction to it, and I tend to take maybe I tend to take a lot of time to try to process it, and then watch it, and then rewatch it, and rewatch it. And with James Bond films, I've done that a lot. And there have been other James Bond films too that I've spoken about, where maybe when I first saw it, I maybe didn't like it very much, but then over time and over maybe many years, and then as I got older, I tended to like them a little bit more, and then maybe for some a lot more. And so that is, I think, for me, the kind of process that hopefully I will have going forward with this film Spectre, because I have to say that my first, upon watching it for the first time, I was uh, I was I was disappointed with the film. I thought it was a little bit. I thought it was. I felt like it took a certain turn with a very important plot point or character point, and that I thought was, for me, it was maybe too much for me to ignore. Usually, if I see a flaw of that sort, I'll try to take it in context with the rest of the film, and I'll say, okay, that was a flaw here, but then maybe there were other parts that worked. But upon my first watch, and I'm talking about the Blofeld, Franz Oberhauser, James Bond connection, I thought it was, really, uh, like, really. So they have a connection. So that I'm talking about, that is the connection between Bond and Franz Oberhauser. They're brothers or foster brothers or something. So I thought this plot point was very very odd, and I think it was made even more, or it was that oddness feeling was compounded for me because of the initial anticipation that I had going into the film. So as I think others have commented, like Jay Moore, etc., this idea of the use of the Blofeld character in Spectre, and thus, in many senses, the return of Spectre to the franchise, or maybe the reinvented franchise, because I think for from a certain perspective, the James Bond films in the Daniel Craig era can be said to be a type of reinvention or reboot, I think is the phrase that was used for Casino Royale. But that, of course, that continuity has continued. It's gone. I think it's played around with that concept somewhat, especially in Skyfall. Case in point is the Aston Martin DB5, the return of it, and actually we see, I think, the shell of it in the beginning here, and then the repaired version, I think, at the end here, but in Spectre. But in any event, this is the world of the reinterpretation of the James Bond films for the modern era, as it were, for the new generation, or the new millennium. And so I understand that, and I think in those terms, I I was very excited for the way in which the filmmakers today would use the Spectre and Blofeld concept. It didn't have to be the same. It certainly didn't, but I was looking forward to it, and maybe they would have a little twist on it that I thought was very exciting. So I was okay with any kind of twist that they would be planning. And then there was word about Christoph Waltz being cast and I think his character name was revealed prior to the release, and it was Franz Oberhauser. And I thought, okay, so are they going to do something? Because it was probably very obvious to. Well, I must say, I don't want to say obvious. I'll say that my guess was, at the time prior to the release, I was guessing, okay, Franz Oberhauser, Christoph Waltz, there's probably going to be some kind of maybe reveal, or that's probably going to be something. I don't know. Maybe deep down, I was thinking maybe Franz Oberhauser character will be something to do with Spectre. Maybe if they have Blofeld, it'll be just like in the old days where Blofeld was just a question mark and we never see Blofeld or anything. Or maybe I thought too, going in, maybe they'll do something with with um, the Monica Bellucci character, because also Monica Bellucci was announced, and I thought, oh, that would be interesting. Maybe if they'll have a twist on it, maybe they'll have Monica Bellucci's character. Maybe she'll be revealed as being the new Blofeld or something like that. Oh, so I thought, oh, this might be an interesting way to turn the series here and there, and still have the same elements, but then have them maybe reinterpreted. Okay, I was all game for anything of that sort, or almost anything, I should say. But even in that sort of that that fun exercise of imagining what the possibilities were, never in my in my thoughts did I think, oh, it would be interesting if we realized that Bond and Blofeld were like brothers. Because I never really thought that that kind of formula or that situation could work. But uh, but lo and behold, it turned into that type of scenario, at least in terms of the backstory. And so that has and continues to be for me the big sticking point. And it's very difficult for me to overlook that and try to enjoy. There are other aspects of the film that I do enjoy. And upon rewatch, I realize, oh, these are actually really fantastic. And there's some great moments. But I wish that it gone a little bit differently than that. And then also by extension, they took that and they tried to make the whole series hinge upon this Bond Blofeld relationship, right? I think it's the damnful idealistic Crusader Spencer, right? Right. It was me, the author of all your pain. So we were led to believe that he was responsible for everything that happened somehow. I don't know if he actually explains it specifically, but he was responsible for everything that happened since Casino Royale, and that all the villains are all members of Spectre. And how do we know this? Because Q analyzed the ring of Marco Sciarra, and there's the octopus. I guess it's an octopus logo of Spectre, and then the tentacles somehow are indicative of each of the villains in the past Bond. Like, you know, I was it was a little bit tough to get over that. But now upon rewatch, what I try to do two things fundamentally. First, I try to look at that stuff that I'm pretty lukewarm on, and I just try my best every time to work with it and to go with it and to say, okay, maybe we can see how this is going to turn out, and maybe it does work, and maybe it does show a good ability or good opportunity for Bond to show some of his background and childhood memories and experience, or maybe it has a good opportunity for Blofeld or Franz Oberhauser to give his backstory, which in terms of the whole issue with his father and his mother, there's a lot there, and it's pretty sinister. The implication being that Franz Oberhauser killed his own father by staging an avalanche or something. I don't know, because he was in essence jealous of his father's attention that he was giving towards the young James Bond who had been living with them for whatever it was, a number of years. And also maybe there is some inherent jealousy or spite, and that's the reason why we understand that Franz Oberhauser, after he's thought dead, he came back. The dead are alive, right, as we were told at the very start. He came back, and then he adopted his mother's name, I think, and his birthright. Therefore, he claims, or he calls himself, Ernst Stavro Blofeld. So I guess that means, what was his mother's name? I'm very interested. So was it, I don't know, I'm something Blofeld, I'm assuming, but the Blofeld line. And so this, but so now, as I say, when I rewatch the film, I try to look at that stuff and try to work with it the best I can, and also try to look at the stuff with, oh, okay, it's all connected to the past films, and I try to work with that. I'm still working on it, and I'm doing my best, and hopefully this live chat will give me an opportunity to hear from you, and then I can try to further process my thoughts upon that, because I'm still struggling, to be perfectly honest. That's one thing I try to focus on. Then the other thing I try to focus on upon rewatch is the stuff that works for me, and there's a lot of stuff that works. I think whenever what's his name, Mr. Hinks comes on, Dave Bautista's Mr. Hinks comes on, I think that the film just shines. I think he's a great great villain, and the body language and his fights on the train, it's amazing. There's this thing about the thumbs, which I think is a little bit, I'm not sure. We'll talk about the thumbs and the, what is it, the what's the phrase, kind of, uh, maybe maybe not quite tomato crushing, but it's, we'll talk about that. And then, but in general, I thought that stuff shines, and I like M's character very much. I think the way that he's struggling with the whole power struggle, and um, and C, Max Denby, and I like that very much. And then also I like the interplay, or the relationship between Moneypenny and M. I'm not Moneypenny, excuse me, Moneypenny and Bond. And then also I like the relationship between Bond and Q, and Q is in the field, and we see a little bit of Q in action too, which is very, very interesting. And I also like the relationship between Bond and Mr. White, and then also Bond and Madeline. And I'm looking forward to the way in which I'm anticipating that relationship will be explored further in the next film. But I think there's so much there, and the action set pieces, I think, for the most part, really work. Although there are some things that I'll try to talk about later today. Uh, but in general, I try to look at it in terms of those two components, and of course integrated, but those two components. And I've watched the film a number of times, and I've actually, for purposes of this live stream, I sat down and watched it. I think, um, since the last live stream, I sat down and watched this film. Not maybe on separate nights, one, 4 times. So I watched it 4 times. I really wanted to. Each time, I really wanted to go into it with an open mind, and so. That's where I am here, and so I will, again, this is the opportunity for me to hear from you. And if you feel the same way about me, or if you feel even more, maybe if you feel on the disappointed side of things, please let me know. But if you are having a lot of fun, and if you think this is a great film for a number of reasons, again, please let me know as well. This is not meant for, in any way on my part, to be a type of debate. But as I say, this is going to be a learning opportunity for me to hopefully learn from those comments, and to learn from you how to appreciate this film. I'm doing my best, and as I say, there are many things that I do appreciate, but let us in that spirit, I want to take part in this conversation with you, my dear friends. uh, so that's my take on this. And also, I think too, I did mention it too, but let me repeat it, which is, this is, as I say, the film that I have watched the least. And I've mentioned it earlier, say, in other films, like when I first saw, say, The Man with the Golden Gun when I was a kid, I didn't like it. When I first saw, say, Diamonds Are Forever, I didn't like it. But then over time, with the luxury of time, I grew to really like them and then love them, for what they were. And I still acknowledge their flaws to a certain, in my own eyes, subjectively, but within that context, they're still, I think, great, and they are great now, and I will be very glad to talk about them further. And so that is hopefully the type of journey that I will have with Spectre, which, as I say, it's still a very young film to me, a very, very young film. So I've only been, what, it's 2015, and now it's 2021. So that's still relatively speaking, short amount of time. So we'll see what happens with the time going forward. So that's my opening statement about the film and where it falls for me. Kubrick Lover. The intro was quite good at the Day of the Dead festival. I liked how the camera at the start goes down the street with the camera that follows Bond into the elevator, then goes out of the hotel room. Yes, onto the roof. Yes, this is a very well put together sequence. I think it's meant to suggest one take, although I understand, if my understanding is correct, it's not officially one take. It's cleverly edited, I think, but still, that illusion of one take is very artistic and artfully done. And of course, if the behind the scenes footage that's included, say on this Blu-ray, for example, I think it shows the the effort and the amount of extras that were needed, and to show this aspect of culture, and it's a lively, festive atmosphere. There are little hints, or there are little clues or homages to the past Bond films. There's a little bit of a of a Thunderball vibe, or there's a little bit of a Live and Let Die vibe, and there's that sense of Bond on a type of mission, although we're not quite sure what. And then there's a little bit of Bond and Solange type of vibe in that we saw in Casino Royale, and he just goes into the hotel, but he said, "I'll be right back," and just leaves the young woman that he was with, and then goes off and does what he does about the Sciarra thing, and that leads to the whole exciting fight and chase, and the building falls down, and he lands on the sofa. Thank goodness that sofa was there when he landed, because I really don't want to imagine what would have happened to him had that sofa not been there. So thank goodness for sofas in the world of James Bond films. And then, of course, he sees Sciarra in the street, and chase. There's that chase, and then there's a helicopter, and then they're fighting in the helicopter that's going all the way around, turning. The pilot's doing his best to pilot the helicopter and fight, but then there's the fight in the back seat or whatever, and they're fighting, and it's the helicopters, and then like Bond's like, "Oh, look, that's a ring. That's a ring. I'm gonna get the ring off, whatever it is." So he gets off the ring, and then all the thing, and then whew, whew, and then the helicopter goes, and then he's piloting the helicopter at the end. It's nice. Da, 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 and he's looking at the ring. Oh, what's that? And then it goes into the title sequence. So that's I think it's really it's a kind of effective. It's a very effective opening, and I do like the whole. He takes the time to look. Oh, there's you know enough of that ring. Oh, give it to me. So I'm not sure why he stopped to do that, because if you recall, we find out a little bit later in the film when Moneypenny visits Bond's flat, Bond's apartment. Bond explains to her the reason why he did this, because this wasn't an official mission that was given to him or bestowed upon him by M. We understand later this is Bond doing his thing without orders, and so why was he doing this? And this is a very serious thing, because it's a potentially, there's damage, there's loss of life, etc., and it's news, it's front page news. So Mallory, M, is obviously very angry, and I would be too. And I'm I don't understand why Bond is so flippant about it, because he, officially speaking, he did something that he shouldn't have done, which is he did something very serious without any orders. And so I must admit, I'm not so with Bond at this moment. I wish he had been a little bit more understanding. But then we realize later that he was actually doing this because of the video that Judi Dench's M had left behind. And it was, if anything were to happen to me, I want you to go after this Marco Sciarra, and don't forget to attend the funeral. And that was it. But I don't think in that message she said anything about a ring. And don't forget to get that ring. That's very important. So maybe if my memory is failing me, then please let me know. But I don't think she, in that message, she mentioned the ring. But in any event, he's able to get the ring, which is of course very important, because that leads to the way in which he's able to tie in the whole analysis with Q and Madeline's information. It's called SPECTRE, and Q said, "Oh, it connects them all." And of course he knows he has to go to the funeral, which he does, and everyone's wearing Tom Ford sunglasses apparently, and and of course we meet further characters, and the Monica Bellucci character, Lucia, and so that leads to the plot involving the big meeting, which we understand is the Spectre meeting, which we'll get into momentarily. So, but yeah, overall, it's a pretty effective sequence, I must say, and that's one of the things that I really latch on to with the rewatch. And as I say, when I think about watching this in terms of fundamental points, those two fundamental points, it that falls in the latter category, which is stuff that I think are really effective of this film. So yeah. It reminds me too a little bit of when he's walking on the roof. It reminds, I don't know if you know the film, what is it? Have you seen the film The Godfather Part 2? But there's a sequence involving a character that's walking on the rooftops. It's a little bit slower pace. It's not slower, but it is slower in terms of the camera movement. Spectre's a little bit faster, but that's nothing against either film. But the point is that there's a character there, a very important character, that's walking on the rooftops, and he's following another character down below. It's a little bit of a different situation, I get it, but in terms of the visual aesthetic and the use of the rooftop, I thought is, yeah, I was always thinking about The Godfather Part 2. Yeah. Oh, Jared says, yes, one thing that's important to remember is that the Sony hack, yes, leaked the original script they wanted to shoot, so they had to rewrite various aspects to change it enough not to resemble the leaked script. Yeah, I remember those days of the the pre-production or the stuff that was happening, and I caught wind of some details. I'm not sure if they were true or not, but yes, what we got in the final film. I mean, I wish one day, maybe it's been done and I don't know about it, but I wish one day someone will come around and write the definitive story about this, or make one of those really in-depth behind-the-scenes documentaries about this, because I really love to know that. Just um, and also, I should say too that it's I mean, we can't stress enough just how huge the news about the resolution of the particular legal conflict, or the legal battle over the rights of Spectre and Blofeld in film presentations, how big this was in Bond world. This was huge. This is so huge. And I would say perhaps this was probably the biggest news about the resolution of this, and that therefore Eon Productions were then able to use this and acknowledge it explicitly in their films, uh, because this hadn't been done officially anyway since the Connery days, uh, and so to be able to have this available, have this character and have this storyline and stuff available, and the resolution of this all the way back to Ian Fleming and William and McClory. Right, this is huge. What a big news! This was probably for me. I mean, I thought the Casino Royale news, when they first announced that that would be the film, and they were able to make that as a film. I thought that was huge news. But then this was huge. This was the biggest thing, I think, and I was, wow, this was amazing. And so, because I think this is one of the defining issues of the film series. It is undeniably, this is one of the defining, because it all stems from a particular point of the inception of the James Bond character that would be the basis of the film character incarnation. And so to have this type of news break out was huge. So with that, I think maybe my expectations were perhaps unfairly heightened, because I was really anticipating something special with their use of the Blofeld Spectre's plot lines. And maybe it was that point and that sense of anticipation and excitement because of this news that really made me feel a little bit let down by what they actually did with the whole Blofeld Bond brother storyline. But still, I do want to emphasize that huge news. That was huge. Yes. Um, let's see. Zyrother says, I went into this with no strong opinion, but on the second watch, I really like it. And then Damful. It's interesting to hear others' opinions on this one. As most know, I can't stand the modern films, and this was the absolute worst of the worst for me. Yes, Gizmordor says, I liked the film. I really enjoyed the first two-thirds, but it was a bit anticlimactic. Christoph Waltz had very little to do, really. Bond Q banter was great. Ah, yes. So, yes, what they ended up doing with the Christoph Waltz character, and yeah, um, what was that whole thing, right? Uh, what is it? Cuckoo. Um, Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, I'll save that for a little bit later. Yeah. And I'm so like what happens in a cuckoo's nest, don't you? And Madeline Swan. Oh yes, I of course I know. Yeah, they'll kick out the rest of the eggs or think like, wow, Madeline has so much knowledge about everything, including the whole concept of the eggs and the psychology of the eggs and the cuckoo's nest. So very fascinating. And yeah. Seth says, an Orwellian threat. The villain receives a Bond villain style scar on his face, and you see the classic white cat while learning he is in fact Blofeld. Classic. Yes, yes. So we get all the attributes of what we understand Blofeld looks like. It's actually this is the scar Blofeld is the we only see it actually in the film You Only Live Twice, and so. Uh, uh, Right. So, although I would think that he would be more, maybe his skin would be a bit more, maybe still recovering, because I'm understanding, or I would assume that that whole stuff in London, when they're in London at night, and the whole thing about the demolition of the building, and he goes in, and or they have time to set up all these rooms in the building that's about to be demolished, and setting up all these things about the pictures, and there's, well, we'll put a picture here of Silva, we'll put a picture here of Mr. White, or we'll put a picture of this. Oh, but anyway, um and then he goes, and they have time to set up the bulletproof glass, which, okay, and then shoot, 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 and we see the reveal of Blofeld and the scar. So I think, well, I'm glad he's recovering, because that was a very, very terrible accident, or not accident. That was a very terrible explosion that occurred right, and flung his wheeled chair, the chair with the wheels back. And I thought that was a really clever use of the chair with the wheels, that the thing you can roll the chair down. I thought that was a very clever use of that in terms of visual cinematic terms. But I would think he would probably need more time to recover, right? Unless he has really quick recovery, like Wolverine. But yeah, but anyway, that's the one of the physical traits of one of the most memorable depictions of Blofeld in the film series. That's for sure. Um, Although it doesn't make any sense to me, why would Blofeld be the one to be in London? Why would he go to London? I don't understand that. Why would he go to London and be in the building where that's about to be demolished? Why would he take that risk? If I were Blofeld, especially after my whole operation in the Sahara Desert has just blown up, it's probably exposed to satellite or something. I don't know. So it's just blown up. If I were in Blofeld's position, I would stay away from anywhere. I would go in hiding and just wait until the Nine Eyes program was implemented. Because, right? Because if that went through, then he would have had access, more access than he had had up to then, in terms of the information systems of whatever these governments in this intergovernmental agreement, which I don't quite understand myself either. But the um, I don't know, why did he go there, and why was he there? Was it and and so that makes no sense. And the only thing that I can understand or I can see is the motivation is that he is doing this because he wants to get back at Bond because of this jealousy that has been engendered between him, or more accurately, perhaps felt by him towards Bond because of something to do with their childhood. If that's the case, then okay, but it makes no sense from a tactical perspective why he would go there at all. I mean, if was he there? Did he want to actually uh, uh, apply the dynamite charges or something like that? I'm not sure. But if that was the case, it wouldn't have been his job anyway. It would have been the British government's because this was an official thing. Max Denby was able to get the okay, right? And so, therefore, the Double O program was essentially abandoned, or not abandoned, but it was discarded in favor of this new intelligence-seeking program that would be under the jurisdiction of Max Denby, or C. Um, yeah. So, although I do remember the I think the in the theater, the line, of course, that gets the biggest laugh, that got the biggest laugh was, now we know what C stands for. Oh no, is he gonna say it? And people, is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say that word? Careless. And it was just it was great. It was like, oh, I think part of the audience was laughing, just, oh, that's what he's gonna say. So yeah. And so, what was I saying? So yeah, so but I never understood that, and he's exposing himself too much, and he gets captured at the end. Well, maybe, although maybe we'll realize that he's doing what was it, a Silva, that he wanted to get captured, and maybe that'll be one of the, I don't know. I'm totally speculating. Maybe that was his plan all along, or something like that. Oh well, we shall see. We shall see. But in any event, as of now, as far as the information that we have now, I don't understand why Blofeld went to London. But still, it looks cool. I mean, and it is setting up the various physical traits of the character that I think many people know, um, from especially from the Donald Pleasance depiction. Carl Hayes says, I saw the film in IMAX. Oh, well done. Well then, Hunter is here. Hello. Damien says it would have been interesting to see how Donald Pleasance Blofeld received the scar. Always something I feel Lewis Gilbert could have elaborated about. He's still my favorite Blofeld, always will be. I think that mystery, though, is part of that's one of the things that makes Blofeld's character uh, really fascinating. The fact that we don't know a lot about him. Um, we get to find out about his personality, of course, but about his background, very little, of course. Cooper Glover says the helicopter scene at the start makes me think of For Your Eyes Only. Yes, yes, and there's also that's a great point, and also I thought about that too, and also there's another detail which also was very For Your Eyes Only ish, which was the car chase scene. Um, in Italy, where you have a car chase in the middle of the city, and conspicuously there are like no cars. There's no one else in the. It's just the two cars. But anyway, except one car. There's like one random light blue Fiat, a modern day Fiat, I think, and it's driving, and the guy who's driving is singing opera, and it's right. So that reminds me of it's not. I know it's not the same car model, but it's a little bit like, oh, this is. Remember when Bond and Melina were in the Dushevo and the car chase at the beginning of For Your Eyes Only? My goodness, wouldn't it have been cool if Bond, maybe his car broke down, he had to take over that car and they had to drive, and Mr. Hinks's super fast cars after them, but then he's able to evade them. Wow, that would have been brilliant. Um, that would have been a very Roger Moore type of situation. That would have been really cool. And I'd also been very reminiscent of some of the chase stuff that we saw in the Venice sequences in Moonraker. But anyway, yeah, that I'm. And there are bits of humor, of course, throughout, in particular in this sequence, that I think work, that don't distract, and so there's a little bit with the car is able to park quite peacefully, and then boom, the airbag is deployed, something like. But thank goodness the driver was uninjured, because otherwise I could imagine that would have been a very potentially. I mean, he could have been injured in that, and I would have liked to have seen that. But thank goodness he wasn't injured in any way. But in any event, there's other bits of humor in that sequence, like when he pushes a button and it's the whole music. I think it's some kind of Broadway tunes thing that was designed for 009, right? Because Q said the car was going to be assigned to 009, but of course Bond absconded with the car, giving Q, I think, a bottle of champagne or something. And so that's a little bit of humor. I think that's fine. Where the I think the chase could have done without, and these are very minor points, but I think the whole bit where Bond is talking with Moneypenny and says, "Oh, just can you do an identity check on Franz Oberhauser, and also can you check on the Pale King? Who's the Pale King? And who is with you, Moneypenny? Oh, it's a friend of mine. It's called a Life, James. Can you check up on these two people? Oh, the Pale King. Oh, it's Mr. White. Oh, Mr. White, of course, Quantum. Okay. And can you check up on Franz Oberhauser before and after? What do you mean after? No, just do it, Moneypenny. Oh, I'm busy. So that actually undercuts a lot of, for me, it undercuts a lot of the tension of the chase scene. I think if we're meant to be really involved and it's a suspenseful thing, and Mr. Hinks is this dangerous guy, then I think that information, if it was done afterwards, maybe he landed after he shot out and he pushed the thing to get off his parachute or something, and he just said, "Moneypenny, can you do a check for me on this?" I thought that would have been really maybe more effective, but oh well. Oh, I understand maybe the economy of cinema, and you need to do a lot at once with one scene, and because of course the running time is a factor. So I guess I understand that in terms of the economical needs of making a scene work on many levels at once. And so this is a chase scene as well as an exposition scene. I just wish it would have been separated, because I think the choice of having exposition in this chase scene somewhat, not always, but somewhat undercuts the tension of the action sequence. But again, a very minor point. Erwin says, I vaguely remember watching promotional videos back in the day, and that helicopter pre-title sequence was quite an undertaking. Yes, and in fact, that there's a behind the scenes, I think it's called a video blog or something, where they go into that in detail and they talk about so many extras, and it was a carnival like a festival atmosphere, which was great, and it was also spoken about in the premiere, and this would be an aspect that would hopefully be a highlight of the film, and indeed it is. It's a great highlight. A Damn Fool says, there are some impressive practical effects, but they get undercut by the lack of narrative drive. The record-breaking explosion was massive in real life, but feels minuscule in the film. Well, that's a fair point. Oh, I must admit though, that shot is spectacular, and just goes on. I thought it was just, as I said, I thought it was fake. I thought it was just a CG use explosion, but no, it was real. Wow. There could have been embellishments here and there, I'm not sure, but wow, it was real. Amazing. Carl says, supposedly they filmed the new one using only IMAX cameras. Interesting. Excuse me. Seth says, I love how the plot is exploring Bond being obsolete and him and his team proving that wrong. Yes, and I do like that. I especially like the M plot line. I think M is showing himself to, well, he showed himself to be really capable in terms of protecting himself in a current emergency crisis situation, like he did in the earlier film Skyfall. And I think he shows himself to be very capable on many fronts. So I thought, and I love his suspenders. I love the use of the suspenders. That look is so cool. Gosh, the suspender look is so cool. But anyway, and the interaction, especially between and among M, Q, and Moneypenny, I think that is a great dynamic, a really great dynamic, and it reminds me too of one of those great M, Moneypenny, Q dynamics that we saw. It was a real personal touch, which was the sequence in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which was the the film in the late 60s. There are some great M Moneypenny moments, and there's some great Q moments that are human and that are personal, and so I like that. I like that very much. And this interplay among these characters here in this film, Spectre, I feel is maybe not the exact same thing, but it is a similar type of vibe for me, to the extent that we can see them in different environments and seeing how they react and how they respond. And they respond quite splendidly, excuse me. And speaking of which, too, I must say, I love how Q is in the field, and he is, of course, analyzing, as you know, in the in the the cable car, and he's analyzing the ring or something. I don't know what, or maybe he did that before or afterwards, I forget, but he's, or not, no, he's having to use his laptop or something, and then he's being chased by those hench people or something. And I love how he's running and he's able to find a little stairwell or closet or something to hide in, and then evade capture. So that was great on his part. Although I would have expected, excuse me, I would have expected Q to maybe use one of his gadgets, but he doesn't. He uses his speed and his his cunning to escape capture. So I thought that was a very interesting touch with that. And we also get the special phone that Moneypenny gets from Bond. Thanks, and it's said J, although we assume that this means that she knows it's from James Bond. But that got me thinking, what were some of the other characters in the Bond universe of films where you had characters whose names began with the letter J? And I was thinking, well, where are there any J? Maybe, you know, my goodness, could maybe it was sent not from Bond, but from, I don't know, Colonel Jacques Bouvard or something that we saw from Thunderball. So maybe it was a plot from Spectre to make Moneypenny believe that she received a phone from James Bond. It was in fact from Spectre, and so that would have made the plot even more thorny. But anyway, so yes, so so the M, I think, is a really that component of the film is really good, I think. Okay. Sorry about this. I am so sorry. The chat is. I skipped in the chat again. I'm so sorry. It jumped on me. I'm so sorry. I'm going. Okay, here we go. If I skip your comment, I apologize. I'm really sorry about this. I'll go through as many as I can, though. Jared says, if you have, I might have to leave. No problem, Jared. Thanks so much for stopping by, and have a great rest of your holiday weekend, my friend, if you're still here, but if you have to go, no problem. Chigger says, I have to say, I'm not a big fan of how Christoph Waltz is utilized in this film. I believe ever since Inglourious Bastards, people have cast him as the exact same character he played in that film. Um, oh, Danforth, yes, Colonel Sun, yes, yes, yes. So yeah, the okay. So Christoph Waltz is Blofeld or Franz Oberhauser. Okay, okay. Yes. So, um, uh, Blofeld as a character, in my eyes, was never in any way a type of physical threat to Bond. I don't think he ever was meant to be that way. Perhaps the only time in the history of the film series where Blofeld was a type of physical threat, to a certain extent anyway, was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And this is, of course, Telly Savalas' depiction of Blofeld. He's skiing. He's, we'll head him off at the precipice, and he's doing the whole, skiing down the slopes. Very effective, by the way. Stay here, cat. And he goes and does the thing. But for the most part, it's been a pretty non-physical imposing threat that Blofeld has cast over the course of the film series. Now, that's not to say that this is a rule that's set in stone. Of course, Blofeld is a character that is that can be subject to interpretation as the years pass, and of course, I'm very welcome to that, as with any other character too. But so in any event, what that meant to me going in was I wasn't necessarily looking for a Blofeld. I didn't have to have a Blofeld that was a physical threat to Bond, but it needed to be someone that was that could ooze this sense of the megalomaniacal type of supervillain. And you got a little bit of that, I think, in the whole way that the huge meeting in Italy was what was it? It was Rome, right? And so this huge meeting was taking place at the first half of the film, which we understand is the SPECTRE meeting. And we get his shadow, or not shadow, we get him in silhouette for the most part. And you just see the turn. He has this way of his body language where he doesn't sit straight. He kind of leans back, and there's a little bit of a slant or diagonal to his stance when he stands up or when he sits down, which I think is actually very effective. It's asymmetrical the way he sits down, and so he's like, "Oh, please continue," and he just turns his head, and everyone stops, and so we realize that this is he doesn't have to say much, but even the littlest movement of his head commands the attention of the entire room. And of course, we get that great moment of that's the introduction of who's going to take care of the Pale King in Austria. So you get that great battle between the two, and then Mr. Hinks comes in and let me while I'm on the subject here, I'll get to Blofeld in a second, but now Mr. Hinks in this introduction. I think Jay Moore or some I think in the comments was talking about or Damien, I think, was talking about Mr. Hinks, or others were talking about Mr. Hinks. I think he's a great character. There's a thing with the thumbs though, which I think was used here. Maybe it was meant to be used elsewhere. We see where Hinks has Bond's head in his hands in the train, and maybe he's about to use them, but then Bond gives him a little thing there, and right against the wall. Okay, so there's that. But there's this one sequence here where he proves his worth by essentially squeezing the eyeballs or something out of this guy. Just blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. And he just takes he cleans off his hands with his handkerchief or something and sits down. He assumes the authority and this role of the assassin that will take care of the Pale King, and also Bond, and also Madeline Swan, etc. Okay, so it's pretty gruesome stuff. It reminds me of a scene. I won't go into too much detail, but there's a certain similar scene that happens. The film is called Blade Runner, and it reminds you of that, like, right? And then also there's it also reminds me too of another James Bond film. I like to mention in past live streams, because I really love the film. It's called The Living Daylights, the Timothy Dalton film, The Living Daylights. And if you know that film, you know the scene I'm talking about. The balloon, Schmionum balloon. Timothy Dalton's like taking it. I hate this balloon. So I always like to think, what like if instead of crushing eyeballs or crushing skulls and a lot of that tomato crushing stuff, instead maybe have a balloon fight between Hinks and Timothy Dalton's James Bond. Be like, who can crush the most balloons in a minute? And maybe Hinks is like going at it for the first 30 seconds, and Bond can't keep up, and I can't, he's too fast for me, what am I gonna do? And then Timothy Dalton said, I can't do it, I'm going to lose. But then someone was preparing the balloons. Maybe Moneypenny's like, I've got to do something to save Bond, otherwise his pace is too slow and he won't be able to defeat Mr. Hinks in this balloon crushing contest. What are we going to do? And then Moneypenny and Q says, I have an idea. And they take all the rest of the balloons that Bond's meant to crush and they write Smear on all the balloons. So whenever Bond looks at them, he's and he's just so, and then so that is the that's the way in which Bond eventually overcomes the Mr. Hinks in the balloon crushing contest. But anyway, yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yes. So this scene with the introduction of Hinks and which I think is also great too, because I love the way you see him from the back, and he has that body language. It's like Jaws and Gobinda, and also a little bit of Sondor uh, from The Spy Who Loved Me, and he's got that that overpowering physique, and his fights. I think that's one of the great that's that train fight. Wow, I love that fight sequence. But anyway, I'll get to that hopefully later. But now we have the sequence in the meeting. And so going back to the Blofeld character, I think that this was, for me, the best sequence. This was the best sequence because it had everything, and it turned the whole Spectre thing into this new, like, frightening shadow global order that I didn't think that felt very menacing because of all the people that were standing there, and and it felt like it felt like some kind of a secret society. And so this was, and then the way it was lit, and that was great. That was so great. That was great. That's as I say, it was the best, or maybe one of the best parts of the film for me. And then Christoph Waltz coming in was fantastic, and the way he was shot was fantastic and menacing. And then we had that weird thing of, he knew Bond was there. Welcome. It's been a long time, and now here we are. And that line too, I think, was full of a lot of meaning when Christoph Waltz's blow. We don't know it's Franz Oberhauser yet, but we assume it might be Blofeld. But it's anyway Christoph Waltz. He says, "It's been a long time, and now here we are." And that line is filled with so much meaning because, as I say, this is we assume this is the return of all this after all this stuff with McClory, and now we have the return of Spectre and Blofeld. So this is the defining moment in the film for me, and I think it's great, absolutely great. Now it ends on a very mysterious, odd note with the whole thing of, he understands where Bond is, and he says cuckoo, and that's strange. And also, I do admit too that, as great as I think the scene is, and I think it's glorious, and in many ways it's the return of this Spectre, their security is terrible, absolutely terrible. That security system, how I'm Mickey Mouse. Wait, who are you? I'm Mickey. Here's my ring. Who does this? No, who does this? But anyway, it was probably done on purpose. He probably knew that Bond was going to attend the meeting, and so that's okay. And that was probably just a ruse, or as a trap. But still, that makes, again, anyway, again, a minor point. It's no good to dwell on that too much. But in any event, that whole sequence, sublime, absolutely sublime, and it goes into the car chase, and yeah, there's a bit with, like, why aren't there any people around, or where are the cars? Aren't there any cars? Anyone else who's driving in the city apart from this other guy singing opera? Aren't there anyone? But I guess you see a little cars in the distance. But anyway, but still, that, and then the undercutting of the whole thing. Oh, find information about the Pale King from. Oh, it's Mr. White from Quantum, of course. So all that stuff. And then maybe there's a sequence where I think, I'm not sure, have they digitally superimposed Dave Bautista's face onto the driver at one shot. I don't know. It looks, like they did with some of the stuff. Uh, what was it? Uh, like uh, what was that? A Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. In some of the sequences, they put Christopher Lee's face onto the stunt double or something. But I'm not sure. It looks very much like. I think they did something similar with when Hinks is on fire in the train fight. It feels like it's a stunt man or a stunt person, I should say. Excuse me. It's a stunt person, and they've superimposed the actor's face on it. I can't prove that, but it feels that way because I feel like suddenly when he's on fire, suddenly his frame is not quite the Dave Bautista frame that we have come to know from the rest of the sequence. But anyway, I'm speculating there purely. But in any event, the chase sequence I think is a great cap to this brilliant setup of the meeting, and there's so much promise in the Blofeld character. And then we meet Blofeld in this compound, this lair in the middle of nowhere, which is also very menacing. And it's got that great line, so James, why have you come? And James says, I've come here to kill you. And he said, oh, I thought you came here to die. Well, it's all a matter of perspective. And so that's some pretty cool dialogue. And then he's wearing the costume that looks a little bit like a Blofeldy type of costume. And then we've got the whole sequence of the whole thing about information systems and everything like that. That's where it begins, I think, to excuse me. I'm sorry. That's where it begins to falter a little bit for me, and then the whole up to there. So far up to I think I'm good. I'm good with the Blofeld character. This is okay. There's a lot here, and it's the whole thing with the meteorite, and and great. Then it goes into the whole thing about it was me. I was responsible for everything. All the pain and death and tragedy in your life, it was me. I'm like, huh? So what does that mean? I was there. You remember, like Vesper Lynn? Oh, and I was an M. I was there. Like, huh? So what? Like, and then I think, and then it brings us to that line of the film, which is, depending on who you look at it, it's either the most famous or the most infamous line in the film. It was me. The author of all your pain. And so I'm like, huh? Like, what? And then we go into the whole, and then we understand that they're brothers, and that's a whole separate thing. But I'm trying to escape, to disassociate from that brother thing, which I still think doesn't work for me. But still, just disassociating that, still focusing in on this whole thing about what is the whole Blofeld situation and his information setup. He was responsible for all of Bond's misery since Casino Royale, huh? Like, and if I were Bond, I would be, thank you for letting me know, Blofeld, or not. He doesn't know his name is Blofeld. I guess he still thinks. Thank you for letting me know, Franz. Could you explain exactly how this is the case? How did you do this? Were you there in the chateau? And Blofeld says, no, actually, I ordered these. Huh? Did you order all these people to do this stuff for me? Was that part of your master plan? Yes, it was my master plan. Like, huh? So, anyway, that's a little bit kind of iffy from a plot perspective, and I'm thinking it's a little bit too convenient and too neat. I don't. In other words, I think it wasn't necessary. I don't think going this route was necessary at all. I think it could have been perfectly fine without doing this whole, oh, I was responsible for everything. Although in that mix, he leaves out some of the details of Quantum of Solace. I think Erwin in the chat was mentioning this earlier about how they left out some Quantum of Solace details. So he mentions details from Casino Royale, and he mentions details from Skyfall. Excuse me. But he doesn't mention any details from from Quantum of Solace. I wonder why. Maybe because he was mentioning the names of the people who who were involved in tragic circumstances in those films, like excuse me, like Vesperlin, yes, and M. But who could he be mentioned in Quantum of Solace, right? Not Camille, right? Unless we find out something that happened to her after the film was over. Maybe he should have mentioned. Oh, and don't you remember Fields in Quantum of Solace or something like that? Or I don't know. Maybe it was Christoph Waltz who's there, and he did the whole thing with that terrible thing with the oil. I don't know. It was me, the author of all your pain. Maybe that was it, or maybe they avoided that because it would have meant acknowledging that And don't you remember Vesper? Yes, and then M. Yes, and also Strawberry Fields, and then maybe Madeline, and Madeline's like, huh? What? Beatles? What's going on? But anyway, so that would have maybe that was the reason why, I'm not sure. But in any event, Quantum of Solace details are somewhat conspicuously absent, relatively speaking. There's a bit of a mentioning of green and of course quantum, etc. And there's a picture of green and the whole octopus ring analysis scene, which is I don't know, I don't get that. How can you find this information about the secret organization from analyzing a ring? I mean, don't do that. If you are a head of a secret organization, you should have that as one of your guiding principles. We are a secret society organization. Our mission is to control the world. We will use all the means at our disposal to control the world. We will have an organizational structure that is rigid, that is based on order and discipline and the respect for authority. And we will have all this information about our organization embedded in every ring that is worn by all of our members. Don't do this. If ever you are going to start a global, if ever you're going to start a globally based secret society bent on world domination, do not insert in the rings any type of information that will identify what this organization is. That is probably a no-no. That's a big no-no in the world of global organization establishment setups, in my personal opinion. So, but in any event, the what was I saying? What was I saying? I was getting worked up about the ring. Who does that with a ring? Like, yeah, who does that? Who makes a ring and has all this information embedded in the ring? That's so. Oh, anyway, the gosh, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I was so absorbed. Oh yeah. So okay. So the whole thing with the um, uh, going back to linking all the past Bond films to Blofeld, that to me is it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, and it feels too shoehorned in, and it feels too convenient. I'm okay with revisiting the little hints of Vesperlin when they go into L'Americaine, that little secret room in L'Americaine, and they see Madeline Swan sees all the pictures, which we assume are her father and her, and he sees the video. It's Vesperlin in interrogation, I think, and just flings it away when she asks, "What is it?" "Oh, nothing." I thought those were great. I thought that's a great callback because it still means that she is a big part of his life, even though he might not acknowledge it. It also reminds me of those little hints here and there of when Tracy was referred to in another Bond film. So I like that type of touch. But then, okay, there, and then goes to London, and let's put all the pictures of the people there in each of the rooms. Ah, just it would have been so much better without that stuff. But anyway, okay. But still, and I think what that does too is it somehow diminishes in a weird way, it diminishes the menace of Blofeld. I think if without that stuff, Blofeld as a villain, or Franz Oberhauser or Blofeld as a villain, would have been much more menacing if he had thought that Bond was just this meaningless thing, you know, totally worthless in his eyes. If that was the case, that would have been much more effective, much more effective. And it was just Bond came in and he was able to outwit or outdo the villain's plans at the end. That would have been very effective indeed. But in a weird way, it makes the world smaller. It makes the world much more smaller because what it does is it makes the whole sequence of films all about Bond. And I guess that's true because they're Bond films. But what I mean by this is I think, one of the great things about Bond films is that its reliance on spycraft and the whole thing about investigating and detective work. And we get a little bit of that here with Spectre, which I really appreciate, following the trail of clues initiated by the Pale King or Mr. White, which is a great sequence, by the way. Um, Although there's a whole thing about Bond films and people when they're riding boats, no one sits down when they're riding a boat, right? They're standing up. Like when Bond is with Tanner on the boat, they're going into the secret layer of whatever is it, the new intelligence headquarters. They're standing on the boat. Here, when and Bond is in Austria going to see the Pale King. He's standing on the and also in Skyfall when he's going into the casino, he's standing on the boat. Why doesn't anyone just I mean sit down, right? But anyway, the oh gosh, what was I saying? What was I talking about? Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so ill prepared. What was I talking about? Oh my goodness. This is the part if this weren't a live stream, I would edit out. But oh gosh, what was I talking about? I was um oh gosh, it's escaped me. It's escaped me. But anyway, I will get back to it if I recall. It would have been about, let's see. Oh yes. So I do like the whole thing about Bond being a detective and doing that type of work, and we see that a little bit in Casino Royale. We see that a little bit here in Spectre. I think it's very effective. But what I don't think works is the if it's all related to him in this universe, he works. I think if he's just part of the whole machinery of MI6 or MI5 or the intelligence apparatus of the British government, in that context, he is just one person in this huge network. We got that, I think, really well in Casino Royale, especially in the scenes where he has to work in order to save his life before he essentially dies from poisoning. And so the whole network is trying to help him. Also, it reminded me a lot of Dr. No, the very first film in this Eon film series, where we see the shot inside the apparatus and the headquarters, and people, they're trying to talk to Jamaica. Oh, and Jamaica just went out or something, and then it's a whole apparatus of people in intelligence working. And then also in Quantum of Solace, when we get the reveal of the whole network at the opera scene there, it's huge and the global implications are stunning and wide. And it's totally beyond Bond, who is one individual, which is fascinating. So all this stuff, it leads to this idea of spycraft and the world of spycraft and this whole world of intrigue and espionage, which is totally beyond one individual like James Bond is. So that I think is brilliant. What this plot point does with Blofeld, in my eyes, undercuts this totally. It means that Bond has always been front and center of this universe, and he was meant to be, which I don't think works. I think it actually diminishes the significance quite significantly. Diminishes the significance significantly. That's a great word, but it diminishes the significance of the Bond character, at least in my eyes, because it makes him too centralized in the whole universe. Um, Everything is about him. And so that's why all this stuff was happening. It was about him because of what Blofeld wanted to do to him, the author of All Your Pain. So that makes the world smaller. It's like, you know, um, like all these connections. Why are they there? It makes the world small. It's much like the Star Wars prequels, how the Star Wars prequels made all these connections using the information from the original Star Wars films that in some ways actually had the reverse effect of making the universe smaller. And I think something like this with Blofeld and the way in which he is essentially part of the entire film series. I think it, in a weird way, makes the series smaller or the universe smaller, which I don't think was the intended effect. Um, but at the same time, I do acknowledge, I do acknowledge that in the grand scheme of things, and especially we will see how this plot point is treated in the next film. But in the grand scheme of things, it is kind of also a throwaway plot point. It's dwelled upon, but not so much in this film. And so it's not a super crucial plot point in the context of the plot story. So I get that. And so in that vein, when this stuff comes along, I think, oh, okay, but then it goes away rather quickly. And so I can kind of go along with it, or maybe in the spirit, I can try to work with it as I watch this film in the years to come. So that's one thing that I think is. Oh, and also related to that too. Related to that is the whole thing with the brother and Blofeld being the brother, the foster brother. This I think also has the reverse effect of diminishing the significance of the characters, and I include Bond as well. And I'm in my eyes anyway. And this is because, and for a number of reasons. First, the the whole reasoning, therefore, or one of the major reasonings for Blofeld wanting to implement this plan is to get back at Bond. Mm, I'm sure there are other reasons, and I know there are other reasons, but that doesn't quite fly with me. So this is one thing that I'm struggling with, and it makes, as I say, it makes Blofeld's Spectre plot in that way, maybe unintentionally diminished in scope. If it without that, it would have meant that they were totally bent on world domination or power or something, and that would have been great. That would have been great. So that was, but it diminishes it. And then also, what happens too is what do you call it? The oh gosh, uh, there was one other thing I wanted to say on this point, but it just has escaped me. Um, let's see, what was the other point? What was the other point? Oh gosh, again, I'm not thinking so clearly today. I apologize. So, but just to generalize that point, which is, um, yeah, it does, I think, diminish the stakes for me. Now, I can also see that, also based on my past discussions on Bond films, this has always been too, like we can always take apart the plot because it's always like a MacGuffin, right? The plot part is a MacGuffin. And so we can always take, sometimes in the films that we love them so much, but sometimes the plot mechanics are very difficult to understand. Like, say, A View to a Kill. I love A View to a Kill, but the plot mechanics are a bit difficult to follow, with the whole thing of why the double earthquake and the fault line, what's going on there. They flood the fault and then they release it. I think, but so in other words, there's a lot of stuff and intricacies that perhaps are just so overly complicated, or just not well thought out, or maybe the weak part of the films are the plots. But as I think Kubrick Lover and others have mentioned, that's not the point, right? The point is to follow through with the trajectory going forward, because of, say, the action sequences or the emotional storyline. Well, here what I'm referring to is not the plot point of, say, the Nine Eyes information intelligence gathering program or project, and Blofeld's program involving surveillance all around the world. I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about the emotional connections between and among the characters. And so, uh, if it's all about Bond, then I think there's a kind of loss of scope, and it becomes very inward. Now, if that was the intention of the filmmaker, I I can maybe go along with it, and maybe I'd like to think or hope that maybe some of this stuff might get revealed in the next film. My guess or hunch is that there is the possibility that if we see Blofeld again in the next film, he might reveal some information as to exactly why he was doing this in this film Spectre. And so maybe there is the possibility that I'm not giving the film enough enough benefit of the doubt. And maybe once the next film comes along, we will see why these certain plot points existed the way they did. So maybe my comments are premature, and I'm very, very happy to watch the next film, and maybe there might be some resolution to some of these feelings of conflict that I do feel about this point. And I do. I don't want to talk too much more about it, but I do. It is. This is a for me it's very important because um, it's essentially talking about the past of Bond, and so when we had films that dealt with Bond's past, there was a kind of consistency about it because Bond was a loner. Bond was always a type of he had his traumatic childhood experience, and whenever there's these emotional experiences that he seems to have, there's something that happens which thwarts that in some capacity, one way or another. And so, very little actually. We get little hints of that, but we never get the full story specifically in a flashback or anything like that. Here's the closest that we ever get to a type of flashback or background story of Bond. And so, I think when we do that, it has, I feel like maybe it should have been done in a non Blofeld context. Let me put it that way. So, and also the last thing too, if there is a connection between Bond and Blofeld, that is this familial connection, wouldn't that at the very least make the British government want to investigate Bond? I mean, sure, wouldn't that cause at least the appearance of the possibility of a conflict of interest on the part of Bond because there's this familial connection now that they've discovered? Or perhaps M suspected this potential connection in Bond's childhood past between Bond and who might have, and this person figure, Franz Oberhauser. Of course, the official record is that he's dead, but in the avalanche, but the dead are alive, as we know. And so this is, uh, but it begs the question: how much did M know, or how much did she suspect? And so, if that's the case, then maybe M is much more Machiavellian than we realized. And so maybe she agreed to have Bond as one of her agents because she knew that maybe one day she could exploit this potential relationship. Again, it depends on how much M knew at the time. I'm talking about Judi Dench's M, how much she knew at the time. But still, there are all these questions that emerge, and so uh, again, maybe things will have more clarity from my vantage point as a viewer. Maybe things will have more clarity for me when the next film comes around. So, and at the same time, too, yes, uh, um, I maybe to think about it in the positive, it does provide this plot point about the brothers. It does provide, I think, two positive things. First, it does allow for the exploration of the Christoph Waltz psychological profile and the reasons why he's doing this. And those scenes, and they're delivered very well. The dialogue is very well delivered, and it is quite compelling. And we get a little bit of the Blofeld background that we never got before, which is also very compelling about this type of, maybe he has this devotion towards his mother, but also this hatred towards his father, which is like something out of Greek tragedy and Shakespeare, which therefore is, and it's just hinted at. And so all the speculation and possibility and imagination of a viewer with this information can go forth, which I think is fascinating. So that's one thing. And then the other thing too about this is it does allow for the introduction or the further development or revelation of some of the details of Bond's childhood. We get a little bit of it maybe in Skyfall. We get a little bit of, say, in GoldenEye. We get a little bit of it in, do we get it in other films? I'm not sure, but in particular GoldenEye and Skyfall, and now in this film. So this is this is information that I think everyone is curious about. So in those two ways, I think it works out very, very well. And also, right, it is also a very good way to have an economical route because Bond immediately recognizes Franz Oberhauser, and so that's the reason why he's able to tell Moneypenny in the car chase, do a check on a person named Franz Oberhauser. And so that leads, I think, to that maybe that's an economical route towards getting towards the Blofeld goal. So maybe as a plot point, those are the reasons why they were employed. And I think I might be able to work with that, or I might be able to see it through that lens as we go forward, revisiting the film. So, um, yeah, I will try to be more open. I am. I think maybe I should be. I will try to be more open minded as I watch the film in future viewings. Um, but anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the Oberhauser Blofeld Bond thing. Okay, but Seth says here, I love how they added a twist to major Bond tropes. Non-working car gadgets, a supposedly simple watch, the Aston Martin at the end. Wow, yes, that's a very good point. Yes. Cooper Glover says, I found the ending kind of trite. He just drives in the old Aston Martin down the streets of London, sort of echoing the end of Skyfall, if I remember correctly. I think you see the Aston Martin at the end of Skyfall. Um, let's see. I think it's there. It's not at the very end, but he drives towards Skyfall in the final like act of the film. I think. Yeah, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's at night. Yeah. Um, Yeah, Damfool says, I felt the constant unwarranted nods to the original films far more annoying and stuck out more than any of the other ones in Die Another Day. Huh, that's interesting. So, like the whole thing with the Huffler Clinic, which is very much On Her Majesty's Secret Service esque. Um, yeah, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I wasn't distracted by them. Actually, I found them to be very welcoming, in fact. But I see what you're saying. That. I see what you're saying here. Yeah, Irwin says this movie is so overly complex and needlessly so. Zyrother, I think so. Yeah. Cooper Glover says you hear the Bond theme at the end of Skyfall, I think, which is echoed again in Spectre, and I just thought, really? I guess. Well, it is a Bond film, so Bond film with the Bond music. Yeah. Carl says the cinematography was great, though. Um, Irwin says, especially at all the stuff with C, the movie just grinds to a halt with me with his, so C, so Max Denby and C, and yeah, I love the M stuff. The stuff with C, like, right? Is it meant? It's a twist that he's really in cahoots with Spectre. I think, although, did anyone right? I mean, did anyone think otherwise? I thought it was, yeah. It's like, okay, this guy's probably gonna be a bad guy or a villain when we first meet him, and so it would have been a twist actually if it went the opposite way. But well, I mean, that's not. I don't think that's anything against the film. I mean, they have to set up characters, right, which are either sympathetic characters, heroes, or the villains. So I completely get that. Um, yeah, it is a bit of an underwhelming component, but we have to remember too, in the defense of the use of the C character, I think we have to remember too that all the stuff with the Whitehall intrigue and the halls of power, the corridors of power in the British government, and this is sort of this is House of Cards, corridors of power type of stuff to a certain extent, anyway. All this stuff is oftentimes pretty much left unspoken or not shown. Or there's hints of it here. There's hints of it with M. There's a little bit of intrigue in that department in, say, Quantum of Solace more than any other film, perhaps. But all in all, even in that film, it's left pretty much vague, and I think that's part of the process here. It's a little bit difficult to show all the halls of power intrigue, the Whitehall intrigue in these film series. But what is I think what is what I think is what can be said in my view could be positive about this aspect of the film is, okay. So the first thing is that the what is really powerful is the whole thing about how C, Max Denby's character C, is basically omnipotent, or not omnipotent. Is omnipotent the right word? I forget, but he can see everything. And so it's not omnipotent. It's he is not, is it omnipotent or omniscient? I forget the word that's meant to mean he can see everything. He doesn't know everything, but he can see everything, and so he can see everything. And so this is very powerful because this there's a scene where M is in the restaurant and Q and Moneypenny are there, and he's going to go to this this place in the middle of the desert here. We have to help Bond. He's going, we can't help him. C knows he can see everything that we do. And if we are seen helping Bond, it would give the game away. This is, I think, a really cool scene because it reminds me of again spycraft, one of my favorite spy stories of all time in novel form and in the BBC TV series with Alec Guinness. One of my favorite series ever is a story or a novel and a book by or novel is a novel by John le Carré, which is then adapted into this multi-part series on British TV, which is called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I love this is one of the great stories. um oh gosh, I'm talking about it. Oh, it would have been, and also Smiley's people. Oh my goodness, what's so great about this world that John le Carré builds? And so, story about control and Smiley and the whole thing about the mole in the circus and the link with Carla, right? So these are all bits of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. The reason why I bring it up is that one of the one of the most suspenseful aspects of John le Carré's spycraft is the way in which you have to be so careful about what you do because you are being observed, you are being spied on, even in this casual situation as like a restaurant. Everything you do, you are being watched. And so that's why there are there's safe houses. I think there's a reference to the safe house here in Spectre in London, which I think is such a cool, that's a John le Carré element too. And this thing about being watched, this feels very much like they have to be very careful because otherwise they will give the game up. I thought this was so cool. And it was the dark, sinister underbelly of the world of spycraft. And great. And of course, John le Carré's depictions are very different in many ways from, say, the Ian Fleming depiction, or and also the cinematic uh, films. I understand this is very different, so they don't have to be the same. But whenever there's this crossover like this, I just get this huge this is just chill of excitement. And so that's why I think I'm really drawn towards the M scenes, and then by extension the whole scenes with Max and C, or Max or C. That sequence with the gun and M isn't sitting there and oh, we know what M stands for, moron, boom, and he reveals the bullets. It reminds me of the opening sequence of Casino Royale. Remember that when Bond has to commit the what we understand, I think it's his second 00 kill, and so he's in there in the office, and the guy's like, his target's like, oh, and you forget, I know where you keep your gun. It's the exact same. It's mirroring perfectly that sequence from the beginning of Casino Royale and Daniel Craig's introduction to us to the world of his James Bond depiction. I love that. Again, the parallel between M and Bond, brilliant stuff. So, um, and uh, uh, and then the interplay between M and Tanner, and they see the whole news story about the Aston Martin in the canal, and oh, what's going on? Bond really in London, and all this stuff. So great stuff, great stuff. I think it's fantastic. So I get why that might seem, but I get why that might be seen to be a weak element of the film. I totally get it, and maybe part of me feels or in agreement with that viewpoint. But I also, in these reasons, I think that those elements are, they are in many ways they are building out the world, which I really appreciate. I said the Blofeld Bond connection maybe diminishes the world. I think these other elements expand the world, And I love those, and I welcome those moments. And if there's any moment that I can interpret that expands the world in this way, I'm all for that. So anyway, so sorry about that. Let's see. How are we on time? It's 8:45 where I am, so um, I do have to leave around 9:30. So I have about 45 minutes. So I can, but maybe I'm not sure what the timing is, but we do have another live stream discussion that we should determine. So I will leave it up to Zyrother and Damful and Kubrick Lever and others to figure out the timing for the next poll if you haven't done it already. So, but thank you so much as always, my dear friends, for this. You are fantastic, my friends, fantastic. Special K. The last 30 minutes are pretty lame, though. Everyone says, especially all the stuff with C, the movie just grinds. Okay, that was the comment I just read. Let's see. Zarather says, the music. I adore the music. Yes. Damful. The climax. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Pardon me. Pardon me. The climax in London felt very Dark Knight inspired, but Bond just leaving Blofeld there to strike again some other day and suddenly driving off with his new lady love as if to suggest an inverted on Her Majesty's Secret Service made me want to scream, if honest. Yes, and if the if the image wasn't if it wasn't emphasized enough, what's great is he's on a bridge. Bond is on a bridge, and he's there in Blofeld in the center, and M is on one end, and Madeline is on the other, and he looks. Who is he gonna choose? Yeah, yes. And then he chooses Madeline, which I think is really interesting because a few moments earlier, Madeline says, "I have to walk away. I can't deal with this killing." And so she chooses a very interesting moment to essentially say goodbye to Bond, only to get captured. And it's thanks to Bond's skills as being an assassin that saves her life. But she's still wanting Bond to leave the I don't know. Anyway, um, but yeah. Speaking of the On Her Majesty's speaking of the On Her Majesty's Secret Service moments, remember the trailer? The trailer for the film, and they use the theme, which is very much like the On Her Majesty's Secret Service theme, right? Da 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 da, and the author of all your pay, da da, and then you've got the Daniel Craig look like, he's leaning there after he's been, hit on the leg, right, like that. The author of all your and then the music is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, right? Dun, 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 boom, bullet crack in the window in the glass there, and then Spectre octopus, da da da, yeah. So yes, that was, and then it was a da da da, right? Da da da, and then it's called Spectre. Is that the line of this film? Is that what this film would be remembered for? Perhaps the author of all your pain line. I, we were talking about License to Kill, the Timothy Dalton film, the other day, and remember the scene in License to Kill where he's meeting M in Ernest Hemingway's residence, and so it would have been interesting. It would be like, if Christoph Waltz's Blofeld were talking to Timothy Dalton's Bond, and we're in the Ernest Hemingway residence, and maybe Blofeld's like, it was me, James, the author of all your pain, and Timothy Dalton would have had a great comeback, would be like, the author of my pain is Hemingway, something like that. Just use the author. That was screaming for some kind of comeback for Bond, like, the author of my pain. Maybe say, oh, that sounds like a terrible book or something like, something. Gosh. I do want to bring up one point here, which is the, well, actually, no. Well, yeah, let me bring it up, which is the parallels are often drawn between the Timothy Dalton depiction of Bond and the Daniel Craig depiction of Bond in terms of the ultra serious aspect of the characterization. And I get that. I think what personally, what I really love about the Timothy Dalton depictions in those two films, we didn't get enough. We should have gotten more. I would have loved to have seen more films in the Timothy Dalton world and that characterization, that portrayal. But what we got is sublime. Living Daylights and License to Kill. These are similar and they are so different from each other and they're filled with nuance and detail. But what also is so fascinating about the Timothy Dalton depiction is that he is so serious on the one hand, and yet those films, and arguably too License to Kill, there are moments of those films that could potentially balance or counterbalance or maybe in a negative way undercut that seriousness. For example, Living Daylights, there's a lot of the early to mid 80s uh, type of Roger Moore feeling or vibe that's left over in the world. There's still a lot of serious stuff, don't get me wrong, but there's still that element in the air of the Roger Moore type of uh, of charming levity and humor that's existing at the same time. Now, for some people, maybe it's too much of an imbalance, but for me, I think it's balanced really lovely. Lovely. Was that no balanced really charmingly? And then in License to Kill, there's an argument to be made that it's much more severely serious overall. But I actually think quite the opposite. I think it's still a film that is tempered with two fundamental components. First is the serious edge with the danger and the real uh, dangerous aspect of Bond. But then also it's balanced with the what I call the action movie elements, the B movie elements that I think have this wonderful, charming, almost ludicrous quality to them, which forms a nice balance. So it undercuts the serious edge of it. You know what I mean? There's serious parts of it, but there are also parts of it that are fun in this quotable B movie action canon films era type of way. And that the canon films comment I think was referred to in the License to Kill discussion. I think Irwin and others were talking about this aspect, right? And so, in my point here is that even with Timothy Dalton's depiction, there are always in those cinematic expressions, there was these elements that were also there to give us different modes and different feelings and different tones. Now, for some, maybe it was undercutting too much, and so that's fine. Here, I think there is an attempt to try to do that with the whole scene with the car and Q's gadgets, the stereo or the music playing suddenly. But for the most part, it's very serious. There's very little in terms of stuff that counterbalances it in that way, and so in an interesting way, it's similar to Timothy Dalton's depictions, but it's also different, and it's I think establishing a different type of serious edge, if one can see it that way. And so, in this way, I'm a big fan of Timothy Dalton, but I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this legacy of Daniel Craig's Bond, assuming that the next film is the last film in his run, I'm very curious and I'm looking forward to seeing how this legacy will be capped off and cemented. And I think once we get the No Time to Die film, we can have a better way of looking at the whole legacy. We're almost there. We're almost there, of course, but we can have a good look at this legacy overall. And so I think there are similarities, but I think there are differences as well. Um, and also, I should say too, before I go on, that there are some really, Daniel Craig does humor really well. I think the humor, like I love the stuff with the in Casino Royale and oh, you didn't bring any chocolates. Oh no, haha. And he just turns and just laughs to himself, and that's the stuff I like. Or when he's parking the car and he crashes the car in the parking lot and it makes all the people go out, but that's his plan in order he can get into the security room and get the security tapes in the hotel. Or when he's taking the pictures in Quantum of Solace of the opera quantum meeting, and he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" Oh, thank you. I love those little things. Those are really clever very humorous lines. They're very different types of humor than, say, a Roger Moore line or a Sean Connery line, or a Pierce Brosnan line. But they're the Daniel Craig way of humor, and I like that. And so I don't want to say with definitiveness that Daniel Craig is 100% serious, serious, serious all the time. There are these moments where he deals with the humor so well. So I'm very, I'm very, yeah. In this way, I'm looking forward so much to the way that this his legacy will be concluded in the next film. Again, assuming that it will be his last film in the series. Yes. Um, just scrolling down here. Sorry. Carl Hay says Monica Bellucci was underutilized. Should have had a bigger role. Yeah, I love that scene though when she returns and there's the music playing and it's darkness and she knows that she's going to be killed and she doesn't even turn around. She turns into there's that moment where Bond is there and saves the day, but you hear the shots and there's that moment where she startles like that. That's wow. Wow, that is a moment. That is a chilling moment. Wow. And the reveal of Bond when the camera moves and we see Bond was standing behind her and her but we didn't see her, but we didn't see him because of the way the camera was positioned. But what a moment that is. That is a very, very powerful moment indeed. I love that. Um, let's see. Um, okay, it's scrolling down here. Um, Matthew James says, "For me, the worst aspect of this story is absolutely the revisionism and also Monica Bellucci being wasted." Excuse me, sorry. Um, Slice of Scott, the rings were all made of the meteor rock. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. The meteor. Yes, and the ring. Yeah, Seth Wall says the Blofeld Bond brother relationship felt full on gold member to me. Yes, yes. Yeah, Damn Fool says when they announced Waltz as Oberhauser, everyone knew it was Blofeld, but I wondered why they pulled the character name from Octopus. Yes, yes. Why does the female Cooper Glover? Why does the female love interest in the movie when Bond first meets her wearing the short sleeve shirt? There's snow outside. Actually, that's a good point. She was wearing a short. Yeah, well, maybe it was hot inside. I don't know. I mean, you could have indoor central heating, I suppose. But that's a good point. That's a good point. When I don't know. Maybe she has a coat on and she took the coat off. I'm sorry, a business jacket on, and then she took the business jacket off, I suppose. But yeah, yeah, um, um, yeah. Jared says the brother relationship they definitely have definitely could have been handled better if they really wanted to connect it that way. Yeah, rather she's inside a building. Yeah, yeah. So that's why. Yeah. That's so scrolling down here. Okay. Yes, Damfool says we finally got Spectre and Blofeld back, only for them to use the brothers' idea from Goldmember. Yes. Um, you know, it would have been interesting to see how that storyline could have been applied when we saw the Sean Connery or Bond Blofeld scene in You Only Live Twice, with the with let me just I have to plug in the battery here. Hold on for one. When we saw the You Only Live Twice scene, and Bond and Blofeld had that scene together, and it's like, I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld. I heard you were assassinated in Hong Kong. And then Bond says, yes. Or sorry, Sean Connery, yes, this is my second life. And Blofeld says, you only live twice, Mr. Bond or something. He's like, oh, aren't we brothers? Don't I know you? And Blofeld's like, what are you talking about, Mr. Bond? You can all watch it on TV. Don't I know you, Blofeld? I think we were, maybe we knew each other as children, or better yet, you and I were like brothers, and I thought you were dead in an avalanche with my foster father. Yes, you're right. We are brothers, but I survived the avalanche, and I killed my father, who was kind of like your father. Oh, that's shocking, Blofeld. That's so shocking. In that case, may I smoke? And then Blofeld says, yes, of course. It's not the nicotine that will kill you, Bond, my brother. Boom! And then Tiger Tanaka and the ninjas come in. You know, and at the end with Osato, it's like, this is the price of failure, my brother. And Osato, and he goes out into the volcano crater and like, goodbye, goodbye, James, my brother. And then Tiger Duck, boom, with the throwing star, and he goes away in his egg-shaped monorail. So yeah, and who was that? And that was my brother. What? What are you talking about? No time to explain, Tiger. First, let's get out of here. So that would have been cool to have the You Only Live Twice. Maybe they should do that. You Only Live Twice Redux, and just have different plot points to match the universe that they've established now in Spectre. That would have been interesting. Also, same thing with Diamonds Are Forever, right? You know, making mud pies 007 is like, oh, Blofeld. I thought, what's going on? What's going on? You're trying to make faces? You're trying to make different Blofelds here? What's going on? And you're still my brother, right? Why are you doing this, my brother? Stop it. Stop it. Please listen to me. You can still come to the good side, my brother, or something like that. So that would have been interesting to see the blonde, or even in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Well, I guess, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just, well, yeah. Okay. So maybe if it was George Lazenby and Telly Savalas, Telly Savalas with his cigarette, right, holding like this, and it'll take more than cutting off your earlobes, Blofeld, my brother, um, before people will listen to your demands. And by the way, why did you cut off your earlobes like that? And more importantly, Blofeld, you're my brother. Stop. You can still stop this in time. And he's like, oh, no, no, my brother, no, 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 no. I have my angels of death that are going to spread all this unless all my demands, all my Yuletide greetings are answered. For the love of our Father, stop it. No, no, you don't understand, because this is Telly Savalas. You don't understand because our Father, he loved you more than me. And so I had to get back at him. And also, I want to get back at you. Why, you ask? I want to get back by using my angels of death. How? I won't say. That's it. Oh, I'm sorry. That was really terrible. Sorry about that. I dropped the ball at the end there. Please forgive me. But anyway, yes. And also, yes. Oh, and also For Your Eyes. Oh, I'll give you a delicatessen in stainless steel. And okay, keep your hair on, my brother. Keep your hair. That's Roger Moore. Oh, keep your hair on, my brother. Oh, but we're brothers. Don't drop me. Don't drop me in this chute. Oh, do you want to get off, my brother? But I thought you were my brother. No, James, don't drop me in the chute. Oh, no. But you killed our father, and you killed him in an avalanche. Here you go. Oh, I don't need a delicatessen in stainless steel. Oh, Mr. Bond. Oh, boom. For Your Eyes Only. And then, oh, he's my brother. Oh, that would have been Roger Moore. But anyway. And then, of course, there was no Timothy Dalton interaction with the Blofeld character, right? So it would have been, but we still have the balloons. So oh, he's my brother. Oh! So anyway, yeah. Okay. Erwin says the upcoming film will also explain a lot about Spectre as an organization. They just have to. Yes. Zaroth says, I hope the next film can flesh stuff out. Yes, I agree. I hope so too. So I'm scrolling. I'm so sorry. I'm totally behind. I'll just go as quickly as I can here. Oh, Matthew James, thank you so much. You left a super chat. Wow, thank you so much, my dear friend. Thank you. Very, very kind of you. Thank you. Matthew James, wow. Thank you. Erwin says, Bond Magic, I guess. Yes. Okay. Matthew says, just buying you a coffee. Thank you so much. Oh, that's very kind of you. Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I do like a cup of coffee, so thank you. Thank you very much. You're very kind, my friend. Thank you. So I'm just scrolling down here. Thank you. Erwin says, you see Skiara flashing his ring at the end of the opening tracking shot. So I guess Bond figured that it must be important. Thank you very much for that detail. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Santiago is here. Hello. Hello. It's nice to see you. Um, Damn Fool's talking about the title song was Fingernails Down the Board for me. As a standalone song, it's okay, but it's not a Bond song. Oh, yeah. Um, yeah. I do like the, yeah. I mean, I didn't like Another Way to Die when I first heard it, but then, I thought it was like shocking, but then it grew on me. I think it became really exciting actually. Another Way to Die, um, and I think also, I mean, I have that actually. I have that reaction whenever I hear songs for the first time. I think, oh, but then they grow on me, and so, oh gosh, like I mean, I didn't like Goldeneye when I first heard the song, but it I think it just clicked somehow, and the same thing is true for the others. But um, this one I think had a, yeah, I'm yeah, it's yeah. I do like the bit in the title sequence though where it has all the eyeballs, and the eyeballs suddenly turn into like tentacles or something. And the eyeballs, do you know this? There's a Hitchcock film, an Alfred Hitchcock film called Spellbound, and there's a very famous sequence in that film involving Salvador Dali, involving eyeballs. And so I thought, oh, this is like Spellbound and Hitchcock. That's really cool. But anyway, just scrolling in the chat here. Um, oh, so the ring was used in the secret chat or the secret discussion that Bond was watching in the scope. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's a detail that I didn't catch. But I do know that the ring was used in the meeting, how to get into the Spectre meeting. So okay, so that makes sense to me now. So thank you. His Mortar says Madeline has been watching her David Attenborough documentaries clearly about the birds. Yes, yes. I think it's a great character. I'm looking forward so much to, as I say, the Madeline Swan James Bond relationship in the next film. But I think in this film, I I like how there's that really that story about, she's obviously very, she's trained in how to handle firearms, and we get that story. We get her, and she knows how to unload and load, take out the clip, and take out the bullet in the chamber. And then also she reveals about how there was a killer that came to her house to kill her father, and then he didn't know that she was upstairs playing in her room, and then that they kept a gun under the pillow or something, which is the assumption being that she took the gun and killed the assassin, um, which is frightening. Which I think then explains why she doesn't like killing, and therefore that's the main thing that makes her, I think, resistant to Bond, and that's probably the reason. That's obviously the reason why she doesn't want to be with Bond at the end. She says, "I don't want to. I can't go keep up with you." That's why she abandons him, only to get captured and put into the abandoned intelligence building. and then get saved, and then they'll go off together, assuming that he has left the service for good. That being the closure of that arc, meaning that she can only accept him if he if he abandons or he gives up his life as an assassin. So, so it's an interesting dynamic there, and those moments where she is looking at those photographs of her, which we assume are her and her father in younger days, when she was a child and he was younger, and also the scenes where she has to be confronted by the recording of the death of Mr. White. That is a really scary moment. And Bond says, "Look at me," which is so, I think, powerful. And this is one of the reasons why I think I really like Daniel Craig's performance. There are some aspects that maybe I still have to work on, but here's where I think he knows that this is something that she cannot watch. This is unbearable, and so, right, look at me instead. And it's not in any way a type of like selfish thing, but he knows that she has to look away at something, anything. So it just has to be him because it's suddenly they're in that moment. It's a terrible moment that Blofeld is putting them in. So that is a very emotionally powerful one. And speaking of which, too, so there's this Madeline and Bond relationship in this film, and uh, the and it's shown, I think, really so powerfully too in the fight with Hinks on the train, which is also a highlight of the film for me. There are, I think, a number of highlights. There's the Spectre meeting at the beginning, and then there's the Hinks fight on the train, and then there's the meeting between Bond and Mr. White in Austria. So the Hinks fight, that also shows the dynamic between Madeline and Bond, and also shows that Madeline is able to handle herself with a weapon, and she does save Bond, and because she wounds Hinks at just the precise moment when Hinks was about to throw Bond from the train. This has lots of Spy Who Loved Me vibes, Bond fighting Jaws, except it's just going through everything, going through walls. And there's a trailer moment, the film trailer moment, where you see a quick shot of Hinks going through a bit of like doors. Wow, I thought that's such a like the command that he has over his body language is amazing. And he has only one, I think it's just one word of spoken dialogue, right? At the very end when he's like, I can't say it, but then it goes out. And it just, I love the Hinks character, and I think he was used just well, just right enough. I've heard some criticisms where maybe Hinks was left the picture too early, so maybe it was the Fiona Volpe effect from Thunderball. Maybe that's true. I would have loved to have seen one more Hinks scene in the film, to be perfectly honest. There's that great moment, for example, when after the chase in the snow is done, and he's seen on the hood of the car, and you see a close up of his gloved hand and it starts to move. That's like Jaws. That feels so much like Jaws. That's such a cool moment, I think. And then of course the fight scene. Although you notice, you see his reflection in, I think, the drinks, or the container or something, and he kicks the drinks container, or the right first, or the ice, I think. He kicks that first before he attacks Bond, and he's like, go for Bond first. Don't go for the ice container or the ice box. Go for Bond first. Or maybe he's like, I don't like alcohol, or something like that. So that maybe Hinks has an aversion towards alcohol or drinking. So that's why he went for the drinks thing first, and then he went for Bond, and it starts the fight between them, and then has that thing at the end, which I think is a very clever way to dispatch the villain. Which so there's a lot of people flying out of things here. So and then just to continue this, which is the sequence between Bond and Mr. White, that's a great way to cap off this very mysterious character and this relationship between them that just started in Casino Royale and continued on in Quantum of Solace, and it ends here in a very powerful and unexpected way, where he is so vulnerable, and we see that he is dying from this thallium poisoning that was inflicted on him, we assume, by Blofeld, as a means to essentially assassinate him. but not. And then also to add insult to injury, on top of that, they Spectre want him assassinated even more now. So it's they doubly want him assassinated, which is very shocking. But then we have the final confrontation between these two characters, Bond and what's his name, and Mr. White. So this is, I think, a a very powerful and quiet, somber way to end this. Probably is one of the key relationships in the Bond films with Daniel Craig. That's for sure. It's a key relationship indeed. So, uh, so um, yeah, and it ends very powerfully. And of course, the coda of that is the sequence later in the Blofeld compound with the revisiting of that footage. It's very shocking stuff. So, those are, I think, highlight standout moments for me. Slice of Scott says Blofeld was willing to die because he viewed his life inextricably connected to Bond's. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. His sole goal was to ruin everything Bond had built his life upon. Huh. The mirror image aspect. And of course, this is Fleming in a way, if we think about like the mirror image aspect, Bond and the antagonist. So, oh, that's Slice of Scott. Thank you for that. That's thank you for that. That's very interesting, and also for the, you and Irwin also gave me the clarification about the Skiara ring at the very outset, and also this indication about a perspective or interpretation about Blofeld and his logic. Very interesting. Thank you. I never thought of it that way, but you've given me something to consider. Wow. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm just scrolling down here in the interest of time. If I skip over your comment, I apologize. Um, Rajendra Pai is here. Hello. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you. Let's see. Um, Seth Walsh says, I love when Bond disarms a man as soon as he exits the building in the snow and instantly starts expertly shooting again. Craig Bond is truly capable 007. Yeah, that's a really good point. And he's standing there, right? He's not ducking for cover or anything. Um, so I'm just scrolling down here. Kevin O'Connell says, perhaps Spectre is a movie that depends entirely on the next installment to be relevant or not. If No Time to Die is good, then we might look back on Spectre with kind eyes. That is a very, very good point. Very good point. Adam, hey Daisuke, I really enjoyed this film in the theater. Haven't rewatched it since. Good discussion. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Slice of Scott says Spectre was admittedly made to be a definitive end should Craig not return. Yes, there is a feeling of closure. Excuse me. There is a feeling of closure. That's for sure. And so, I think, yeah, yeah. And I think there are a lot of uncertainties right at the end of Spectre. We weren't sure whether, excuse me, we weren't sure whether um, he would return or not. So that's a very good point. Once again, Slice of Scott, fantastic, fantastic. Thank you. See, this is what I was. This is what I need. I need these comments to help me see the film hopefully in a better light and to help me catch these details that I didn't miss that I missed because as I say I'm the least experienced with this film. So thank you very much. This Adam and Slice of Scott and Seth and thank you so much and others here. Thank you. Damful. This yeah, the biggest problem was having far too many cooks in the kitchen. The scripting process was a mess and then was further complicated by the Sony hack. Yes. Mainly Movies is here. Hello, it's nice to see you, my friend. Uh, HMM is here. Spectre was partly filmed in my home country, Norway. Oh, great. Yes. A Slice of Scott has an interesting retort, which is many cooks, yet every scene specifically builds on previous scenes, far more than any previous film. Mendes' vision, was executed. Very interesting. Yes. Okay, sorry about this. Now let me go back. Okay, it's 20, so I have about 10 minutes less left here. Okay, so again, scrolling down. Again, I'm skipping over. Um, I'm so sorry about this here. Um, Very interesting. Jim Salas says, "Your hello." It's you say it seemed like every 3 minutes I was thinking, "Oh, come on." Uh, Spot Motion is here. Hello, Spot Motion. Let's see. Matthew Walls is here. I never saw Spectre. Let's see. I'm so sorry. I'm skipping over so much. I really apologize for this. Um, Mystical 905 is here as well. Thank you very much for stopping by. Thank you. That's a very good and Slice of Scott. Thank you. Blofeld is less menacing, but it would have uprooted Bond's story, which is the important part. That is another very interesting point. That is very interesting. Yes. Because also, right, even in past films where Blofeld has appeared, like You Only Live Twice, or maybe I think the argument could be made that Blofeld was menacing when he was still in the shadows. Like, I think perhaps From Russia with Love, he was very menacing indeed, but it wasn't overly so. You're absolutely right. And when he appeared, the argument could be made that he didn't necessarily cast this sense of menace. Diamonds Are Forever, for example. So there was a different type of dynamic to his villainy. So that's a very good point, Slice of Scott. So it's not necessarily a prerequisite per se that Blofeld must be menacing or it doesn't work. So yeah, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. And plus, we also remember this is a James Bond film. Yeah, so it's about Bond in some way. So that's a very good point. Yeah. Um, okay. Let's see. Okay, so Slice of Scott then continues. People become obsessed with anything. Only Blofeld is obsessed, but he definitely either rubbed off on Silva or Silva rubbed off on him. I think there's too much misreading on what actually happens. I don't. Okay, I don't. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I didn't follow the previous line of discussion in the live chat, so I don't. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what that what he's referring to, but that's totally okay. Let's see. That's interesting. Yeah. So that's you continue. That's why MI6 gets so much screen time. Shows the difference between Spectre and Blofeld's personal issues. That's interesting. That's interesting as well. Again, to look at the whole. Therefore, the M Denby scenes become quite integral in that perspective. Okay. Mm, very interesting. Jay Moore says, I do feel like Blofeld's dialogue may have been more figurative too, less than he literally just keeps watching Bond, and more like he just wanted to dig to further into Bond's emotion. That's a very good point too. Very good point. Yes, and it's also left up to interpretation too, which is the great thing about it. But fantastic, fantastic point, by the way. Yes, and Slice of Scott, you continue. Blofeld needs attention. Yes, that's a very good point. Yes, he needs to reveal. Yes, how amazing he is. No fun to make YouTube videos saying how awesome and evil you are. Right? He needs a villain. How convenient. He knows 007. Yes. That's a very good point too. That's a great mega maniacal touch to villains, right? They need someone to tell, right? You are Bond. I think you would appreciate, yeah, that type of mindset. That's a very good point too. Cooper Glover, maybe Blofeld likes James Bond and admires him as an equal, like Scaramanga in The Man with the Golden Gun. Danful, yes, it's interesting in this era. There has yet to be a film with this Bond operating at full capacity. We've only gotten before and then the Haggard afterward. Oh, it's interesting too. Yes, yes. Maybe the argument is that maybe Casino Royale in his first mission there, maybe. Um, in terms of Bond and a type of prime, if you will. Interesting. Oh, Slice of Scott says no familial connection. They spent 6 months. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it is also uh, I there's undoubtedly this link with family. So that's what I mean. So yes, I understand exactly what you're saying there. So, and also the time, but also this is part of the past. So and there is that connection between them. So, and again, I don't know what the details were. Of course, there weren't any. Maybe it wasn't an official, like I know it's not an official adoption of sorts, but it is that link with the connection, and I use in air quotes like brother or foster brother ish. But yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's not quite that specific, yeah. But still, at the same time, that relationship still exists. I think, based on the information of the film. But I understand what you're saying. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to get through this. Sorry about this. So Carl said omniscient. Thank you very much. Thank you. Omnipotent, it means powerful, right? Now I'm thinking again. I'm not. I'm thinking very poorly. I always think poorly, but in particular today, I'm thinking especially poorly. So thank you very much for catching all my misses. um, let's see. Damfool says Le Carre was diametrically opposed to Fleming, but they represented two sides of the same coin. Yes. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The most serious elements of Fleming's stories cross into the more gritty and grounded world of Le Carre. Yes. Keigo Onishi, hello. Thank you very much for stopping by. The Casino Royale scene was more impactful, in my opinion. Timothy, hello, Timothy. It's nice to see you. I have no respect for this film. I think it is awful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by, though. I appreciate it. Thank you. And not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Thank you so much for that. Kegel says, I really disliked how little people get battered and bruised in the Sam Mendes Bond films compared to Craig's first outings after the train fight. Bond just got a little. Oh, is that true? Oh, I never thought of that before. That's interesting. I'll have to take a look at it again. Thank you very much for that. Um, let's see. All right. Um, Kago says Dalton's scene with Pushkin in the hotels. You're talking about the Living Daylights. Yes. You should have brought lilies. Yes. Okay. So, again, I'm so sorry. I'm looking through this. Uh, oh, that's an interesting. A Slice of Scott says this film doesn't justify Bond. It gives Bond a way out. Another. Wow. Another very provocative statement. That's very interesting. Hmm. Interesting. And if that's the perspective, then the link to the past is probably the way to cleanse that or to create a kind of catharsis, which was then set up earlier in the film Skyfall with the introduction of Skyfall, etc. So okay, that's you've given me yet another thing to think about. So thank you very much for that. Great, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So well done. Yeah. Okay, so sorry about this. Oh goodness, I am so sorry. This is a great conversation, but I have to. Gosh, let's see. Damfool says the finale was suddenly rewritten during shooting. You're talking about the finale with the helicopter. Yeah, I think there was. I understand too. There was a slightly, there was not quite a significant different ending that was planned. I think if my information, the thing, the what I read was correct, but. Oh, Roger is here. Thank you so much. Oh, you're very kind. You say your Connery is fantastic. Thank you. I, I I'm um yeah. It's pretty. Sorry about that, but oh well. Yes. Um, thank you. Magnus Solberg. Yes. Hello. It's nice to see you. Where do you think Spectre sits in the era of Craig? Um, I think we're gonna have to see after No Time to Die. Once No Time to Die is established, again, it might go towards answering a number of the questions that we had in Spectre. Same way, perhaps, a number of the questions that were brought up in Quantum and Casino and Skyfall were, in a way, addressed to a certain degree in Spectre. Yeah. Oh, Damfool says we must have another conversation someday where we just do Bond impressions back and forth. Oh, that would be fun. I thought your impressions are much better than mine. So I think the only thing can we do a Craig one? I'm not sure, but it's like, how about this, which is okay, the author of all your pain. Can't do is that? Gosh, I can't do it. Yeah, yeah. Um, and then rank the best chin acting. Um, uh, yeah, one more. Yeah. Okay. Well, we do have one more. I'll save it. I'll save it. We have one more Pierce Brosnan film. So anyway, yes. So all right. So I'm gonna. It's time is almost expired for me because I do have to. I have to take my daughter to somewhere today, and I had to leave in about 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes or so, at least. So I will say very briefly in conclusion that this conversation has, I admit, helped me to begin to reevaluate this film. Now, I maybe am still looking at this film as, it's not for me the best James Bond film I've ever seen, but it is still a kind of you're right. I get it. I get, it's a film, right? It's a film. So there are elements that work and elements that don't work, and even the elements that don't work, maybe over time and with the perspective given by others, there can be things that one can look at differently, and I'm always happy to see that. And I've seen a number of ways where I can look at this film differently. Again, that's what I was seeking when I was starting this live chat to begin with. Again, the opportunity to look at this, and I also acknowledge too that the film No Time to Die, I think, might solidify a viewing of this, or the way how this film falls in the overall scheme and structure. I totally get that. And also, right, the I think the thing that I'm walking away from this film, this discussion with, which I'm so happy for, is the thing that I see as the biggest weakness. Now I see that perhaps there is this possibility of looking at I'm sorry, Bond Blofeld relationship, or the dynamic. It maybe it doesn't have to work wholly, but thanks to people like, say, Slice of Scott and others here, and Seth, etc. Now, expressing to me their enthusiasm for this. There's this idea, yes, two sides of the same coin. Now, maybe is it expressed in a way that I would have liked? I'm not sure, but is that the point, or is it trying to deal with the films on its terms? And so, in that case, then this is giving me so much more to think about. And in fact, maybe this is an anti James Bond film, in the sense that maybe it's more about Bond trying to leave the life and confront something about his life, rather than a typical Bond adventure or something like that. And if that's the case, then I'm very yes, I'm very appreciative of this conversation, very much so. Um, I'm, as I say, I'm always trying to to uh, to approach the films with as much room as possible. And I admit that maybe I'm not, I get somewhat close-minded, and that's one of the weaknesses of mine. It's a very big weakness, in fact, and I have to learn to be more open-minded. And so I will try to be more open-minded with this. But this conversation, and again, acknowledging people's comments about the faults and things that are wrong. I'm with you as well, but also at the same time, I think I'm feel very, very happy that now I can look at this film, hopefully in a different way. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and this was a lot of fun for me. Thank you so much. As always, you teach me so much. You teach me and you catch me where I fall and I don't quite get this, and you tell me, no, it was like this. Oh yes, you're absolutely right. Or it's like, thank you so much for this. And you always do it with this fun sense of enthusiasm and respect all the time. So, my goodness, you are fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, Spectre, I will keep on watching this, and I hope you as well. And let's come back and talk about this. If I do a ranking, if it falls in the lower part of my ranking, again, I apologize, but still, I will keep on watching this and other Bond films, because that's the whole point, right? Watching these movies. So. All right, my friend. So now, before I go, I just want to say, is the next film decided? Is that film decided, or not, or was it? And I just skipped over the choice. If so, I apologize. Um, oh, Die Another Day. Okay, so the next film is going to be Die Another Day. Okay. So, and I think if I'm correct, that means after Die Another Day, that will be the end of the Eon run of films, except for the redo of For Your Eyes Only, right? And then Die Another Day is next, and then after that we do Never Say Never Again and Casino Royale, right? If that's right, okay. Um, so I think that's the case. If so, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Cooper Cliff and Zyrother. Thank you. Die Another Day. Yes. So in the final couple minutes that I have, so Die Another Day. What can we say about Die Another Day? Um, uh, yeah. So that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be very fun indeed. I'm looking forward to the great chin acting. There's so much chin. I don't know if there's so much chin acting because there's chin acting, but there's also beard acting in Pierce Brosnan's Bond films. That's fascinating. A lot of right, and that sequence with the beard and the whole thing swimming in his and like it's like pajamas and that's oh wow, fascinating stuff. And that's just deep. That's not even the film. That's just the beginning. That's the setup that you go into it. And so and I remember when I saw the film, the title sequence, shockwaves. I felt shockwaves. They were really going this far with Bond being captured. So it's going to be yeah, and then right there are other parts of the film that happen as well, and so there are moments that I have very big issues with, but it'll be very exciting to discuss them because I did watch it recently, and I do acknowledge too that I love Moonraker. I love the film Moonraker because I saw it as a kid. And I can understand totally if people love this film Die Another Day because they saw it as a kid. It's like Moonraker, and it's got its satellite and giant attacking thing and ice hotel and stuff. So there's a lot of fun stuff in it. There's a lot of goofy stuff too, a lot of goofy stuff. But that's also part of the situation, and you either like it or you don't. So for the longest time, there were lots of things that I didn't like about this, but I've come around on a lot of it. So I will look forward to that conversation with you, my dear friends, very much. So thank you so much to all who joined and I will see you at the next live stream. So let's end this with I want to have cucumber sandwiches and tea with you. With CSK, may I press you to a cucumber sandwich? Yes. Let's end this. Let's end this with how should we end this in a Spectre way? Let's say what? Right. So. Here, yes. Uh, Thank you very much for joining me with the discussion on Spectre. So let's end with the damn fool's favorite line from the film, "Author of all your pain." So I've discovered, yes, the film is not the author of all my pain. It is, in fact, a film that is, I think, worthy of much reconsideration and rewatch, definitely on my part. So I will put in more effort with this going forward, and I look forward to that very much. This organization does not tolerate failure. By thank you very much, Damien. Thank you. Yes, the author. They said the author. I am the author of all your pain. Not yes. Thank you very much. That will be the iconic line of this film. Yes, yes. In a very pleasant and positive way. Yes. Um, I am the author of all your pain. But we will go cuckoo. Thank you. Thank you very much, Erwin. You are the best. Thank you. Cooper Glover says, I'm the author of Dice Kiss Pain. Cooper Glover, far from it. You are the best. Thank you so much, my friends. And I will see you at the next one. Cheers.